distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed a privilege for me to be with the children of the Sri Sri Academy. I am very, very impressed to see you rooted in your traditions, rooted to your culture, rooted to your past, and looking forward to an exciting new future. Right? I have come back to Siliguri after a gap of, I think, over half a century. And like I said, like I was mentioning yesterday, I had started my service career from here. I'm extremely proud of the fact that in my batch, we have the two highest gallantry award winners of this country. Second, Lieutenant Arun Khetrapal, Param Chakra, posthumous. And Colonel Neelkanthan Jayachandran Nair, Ashok Chakra, Kirti Chakra, posthumous. Right? Both of them laid down their lives, but they got us the highest gallantry award in the land. As I was mentioning yesterday, we were commissioned a month before the due date and sent straight into the war in Bangladesh. Straight into the war. And like I said, we lost many good friends on the very first day of our service. The simple fact is, we paid a price, but we are very proud that we were on the cutting edge when India broke Pakistan into two pieces. Two pieces. I have come to talk to you about three basic things: duty, honor, country. In fact, that is the way the Americans put it. In our country, we put it country first, always and every time. When you go to the Chetwood Hall in the Indian Military Academy, Dehradun, there in golden words on a wooden mahogany panel are emblazoned the motto of the Indian Military Academy, and that is: the duty, honor and welfare of your country come first, always and every time. The honor and welfare, it doesn't say safety, because you may have to leave them to their death, to your death. The honor and welfare of the men you command comes next. Your own ease, comfort and safety come last, always and every time. Yesterday I was asking the principal, how many boys are you sending to the NDA, to the IMA each year, and I'm happy to hear that that number is growing, and I'm very certain it will continue to grow. But what I want to tell you here today is, whether you join the armed forces or you join the bureaucracy, whether you go to the civil services or to the private sector, we are all Indians. And we must be patriotic. We must be committed. Right? Committed to the country where I was born. The country for us soldiers is not a piece of the earth. Right? Something that you trod upon every day when you get up from your bed. But it is for me, for all soldiers, serving and retired, a emotion, blind and overpowering. For this emotion, I can kill or be killed. And let me tell you, after 37 years of service, 5 tenures of combat duty, I have left about 350 dead terrorists, 45 Pakistani soldiers dead, and about 165 wounded. I wish I could do more. But like Ambassador Vora was saying, when the Beagle calls again, we shall rise. We shall rise. And even these old soldiers would love to pick up arms again. My greatest regret is that I have had to bid my farewell to arms. But what is patriotism? Huh? In this country, the traditional way of teaching values is by stories. Jatak, Kathaएं, Panch, Tantra. These are all stories. So my children, I'll not give you sermons. I'm going to tell you stories. Stories that we all love. Right? And one of the first stories is not really a story. I want to tell you what patriotism means. And if you want to learn that, I think one country that we need to look at is Japan. Japan. If you go to Japan even today, they say the most aesthetic peak, the most beautiful peak in the world is Fujiyama. The most beautiful flower is the cherry blossom. And they keep their country clean, their school clean, they get up with their teachers, they clean their own toilets and they keep it sparkling clean. Because Japan, it is Japan that matters the most. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you of how they showed their love for their country. The Second World War, the United States of America joined the war against Japan, right? The Japanese knew they had very little chance against the technological prowess of the United States of America. So they launched Pearl Harbor. And from there the war started, and slowly the technological superiority, the technological prowess of the United States of America began to prevail, right? They had 18 aircraft carriers to 11 aircraft carriers of the Japanese Navy, Imperial Japanese Navy. And slowly the tide of war began to turn. When Japan started losing the war, they asked for volunteers. They asked for volunteers. To do what? To die for their country. To become Kamikaze pilots. Right? What is a Kamikaze pilot? He was a pilot who swore that he would take his aircraft, his Zero, loaded with bombs. Right? He would fly off the aircraft carrier, get on top of the American fleet, look for the biggest American aircraft carrier, and then he would just press the joystick of his aircraft down flat against the ground so that it came like this. Right? He would smash himself into the American aircraft carrier. Japan would lose one pilot, one aircraft. But the United States would lose an aircraft carrier with 5,000 sailors on board. He would take them down. They had, and when they asked for volunteers to do this job, do you know something? They were flooded. You would think that, there would be very odd, the one odd man who would volunteer for committing suicide like this, for his country. But they were flooded with this thing. And there were lines outside the commanding officers' offices. And there were people cribbing and crying, why has he been selected, why not me? You would think it was for a promotion, you would think it was for an award. No, sir. It was to the right to die for his country. Right? And then when he got into the aircraft, when he got into the ship, on the next day that he was to go for his final Kamikaze suicide mission, this young pilot was given a separate room. He was allowed to sit alone, and like you saw the little prayer ceremony, he would do his ceremony, he would meditate, and he would write his last letter to his mom and dad. Most of these guys were 18, 19, 20. That was the age of the Kamikaze pilot. And there is a collection, there is a book which is called The Pilots of the Divine Twin. I would recommend it to you. Do read that moving book on the Japanese Kamikaze pilots, right? And at the appendix you will find a whole series of the last letters. The last letter that he wrote home on the night when he knew the next morning he would be no more. You know, some of them were quite sentimental. Like, you know, there was one which said, "Dear Dad, I never called you this in my life. But I want to do it now. Because tomorrow I will not be there." There's another more factual kind of a guy, "Dad, my bank account number is so and so. This is the way my pension will come to you at mom. Thank you for everything." And the next day, this man would take his bath, he would rise, he would tie a white silk scarf around his head. The scarf of sacrifice. In our country, we used to tie a saffron turban. The Rajputs, when they went for their last battle, would tie that turban with their own hands, right? And then he would come onto the carrier's deck. The whole carrier's complement of sailors and admiral downwards were all lined up. They would salute him. Even if he was a second lieutenant, even if he was lower rank, they would salute this man's admiral downwards, because he was going to die for his country, right? And he would get into the aircraft, the whole salute, you know, the whole ship's complement would salute, all hands on deck, right? And he would take off in his Zero fighter. And when they ran short of Zero fighters, they started using toed plywood gliders filled with bombs. The aim was to deliver those bombs onto the bloody enemy. And when he reached on top of the American fleet, you know, in those days, on the destroyers, on the American frigates, they would have huge white arrows painted with typical American humor, carriers that way. Udhar ja bhai mere paas na. You know, and this young man would get on top of that aircraft carrier, the biggest, and then press that joystick. And as he rammed that joystick forward, he would shout the Japanese war cry. You know what is that? Banzai! And that was the last, you know, that he could get into that. I often ask children, now it's my payback time, mine and Ambassador Vora's. We are paying back for all that the country gave us by talking to the children, by coming to pass on the torch. एक मशाल हम आपको देना चाहते हैं, जो जलाई है इधर पे. It is burning still, and we want to give it on to you. Don't let that torch die out. Don't let that flame of courage, of patriotism, of nationalism die out. The love for your country. You know what the word Banzai means? Any guesses? Any guesses better? Banzai. What does Banzai mean? Okay, there are no Japanese language experts around here, I'll tell you. Banzai means forever. Forever. I may come and I may go. I am like the bubble on the surface of the sea. It's here now, it's gone tomorrow. But my country will live on forever. Forever and ever. मैं रहूं ना रहूं है तेरे साथ मेरी दुआ. ठीक है, I may be there, I may not be there, but my love for you, for my country, will live on forever. And for that, I'm prepared to die. For that, I'm prepared to lay down my life. अबे एक शरीर नहीं, हजारों शरीर आके छोड़ देंगे. कपड़ा है ये, कपड़ा है ये. कपड़ा पुराना हो जाता है, उतार के फेंक दिया जाता है. गीता में लिखा है, श्रीमद् भगवत गीता में, ना हन्यते हन्यमाने शरीरे. इस शरीर के नाश हो जाने से इस आत्मा का नाश नहीं होता. ये फिर आएगी, बार बार आएगी, और जितनी बार आए ये इसको नचावर कर दे. ये तन, ये मन, अपना सब कुछ. That is the feeling that I can give to you. Right? We don't earn much in the armed forces, but we do earn respect. We do earn respect. And therefore, children, I want to tell you what nationalism is, what patriotism is. It is that Kamikaze pilot. It is that Kamikaze pilot. You may join the armed forces, you may not join the armed forces. You can serve your country in so many ways. You can be a doctor, you could be an engineer, you could be an IT specialist, you could be a corporate manager, corporate honcho, whatever. But we are all Indians. And India above all. That feeling of nationalism, patriotism, whichever field of life you go to, whichever field of life you go to, you have to be patriotic. You owe it to the land that shaped your body. Right? ये माँ है हमारी, इसको आप रोज अपने पांव से रोनते हैं. But I have seen soldiers die for this country. I have had people on my right, people on my left shut up. I have seen the intestines of one of my soldiers come out with that shell fragment. And I have seen him, and I will never forget the way he was putting it back, his own intestines. You understand intestines? You got 6 feet of the small intestine and 21 feet of the big intestine, 21 feet. And it's slippery. And he was shot up and he was so, shell shocked that he didn't feel the pain. He was just putting it back, कि यार ये doctor मुझे सी देगा. And I will live. But it doesn't matter whether I live or whether I die. What matters is my country. Right? What matters is my country. And that is the message that I want to leave to you. One of my course-mates was Second Lieutenant Arun Khetrapal, 17 Pune Horse. Her dad commanded that unit. It is called Fakhre-Hind by Pakistan. You know what Fakhre-Hind means? The pride of India. It's produced 2 Param Chakras. Colonel Tarapurwala and Second Lieutenant Arun Khetrapal. Khetrapal was my batchmate. He was a gentleman to the tips of his toenails. Lawrence School, Sanar, I still remember him smiling, great polo player, water polo player, rider. He got the bayonet, etc. Dedicated officer, dedicated young man. And when he joined the unit, you know, we have the ceremonial dining in, right? And when he was being dined in, you know, they make you, they try and get you drunk. so he was given drink after drink, and he said, now, they wanted to see whether he could still remain standing on his feet. He said, you will propose the toast, right? So young Khetrapal got up, he'd had one too many, he had been plied with one too many, you know, and he raised a toast. He said, gentlemen, I raise a toast to Colonel Tarapurwala, Param Veer Chakra posthumous, you know. So everybody, you know, they all got up, and as per the custom, they raised a toast to the Colonel, the, you know, Param Veer Chakra posthumous. And then he was to sit down, but he refused to sit down. So the senior subaltern nudged him, "Abey, ho gaya, baith ja." So he refused to sit down, and he said, "Gentlemen, I propose a second toast to Second Lieutenant Arun Khetrapal Param Veer Chakra." They said, "This guy is drunk. Sit down." But he got the Param Veer Chakra. He won the Param Veer Chakra for his regiment, for his country. And how? You want to know? He was in the Battle of Basantar. The infantry had attacked across the Basantar river, right? We'd formed the brigade. And when we'd formed the brigade, they suddenly heard the noise of enemy tanks assembling for a counter-attack. The 8th Independent Armored Brigade of Pakistan, with 100 patterned tanks, had formed up against the bridge to drive the bridge, crush it under their tracks. What is called blood on your tracks. Blood on your tracks. That means you, दुश्मन का खून तुम्हारे tracks के साथ लगा होना चाहिए. So the Pakistani brigade commander came himself forward to crush this counter attack. The minefield lane had not been breached by then, right? And Colonel Hanuth Singh, Rao Raja Hanuth Singh, the commandant of Pune Horse, right? He was given the message कि सर दुश्मन का काउंटर अटैक आ रहा है, इन्फेंट्री वहां पे मारी जाएगी सारी. There are 100 Pakistani the tanks lined up for the counter attacks, right? So he said, if the minefield through, are we through with the minefield? They said, no sir, there is a lot of shelling and a lot of people who were, the engineers who were trying to clear the minefield are dead, mostly. So he said, forget the bloody minefield clearance lane. We are bashing through. So Colonel Tarapurwala with his lead tank came up in front. He said, single line ahead, we'll go through the minefield. Any tank that bursts, the other tanks will bypass and keep moving forward. Get there. So one squadron of tanks got there, and then one troop which was led by Captain Malhotra. And there were 3 tanks there are 3 tanks in a troop. So the troop was led by Captain Malhotra, Second Lieutenant Arun Khetrapal, and Second Lieutenant Alawat. These were the 3 tank commanders who got in. So one squadron and a troop. So about 18 tanks versus 100 Pakistani tanks. They got in. And there was a chilling radio message from Commandant Colonel Hanuth Singh. He says, no tank will retreat an inch. Pune Horse lives here, dies here. But we will not let the Pakistani tanks through. Attack after attack came. Wave after wave of Pakistani tanks attacked. And the sector that was the most vulnerable was the sector where Second Lieutenant Arun Khetrapal was there. Tank attack after tank attack, and they beat them back. You know, they all shot them up. 49 enemy tanks were shot up, right? And then they were trying to get the breakthrough where Arun Khetrapal was there, right? Captain Malhotra's tank got shot up, got fired, had to be out of action. Alawat's tank got shot up. And the only tank then left was Second Lieutenant Arun Khetrapal. I'm just trying to tell you what love for your country is. He shot one Pakistani tank, he shot a second, he shot a third, and then his tank was hit and caught fire. And I hope you know it was a Centurion tank. It's a massive bloody tank, right? And inside that tank there are at least 40 rounds. That round is half as big as me, right? And if one of them goes off, आपके चीथड़े नहीं मिलेंगे. So when the tank caught fire, you know, Captain Malhotra, he ordered Arun, your tank is on fire. Abandon tank, damn it, it will burst any bloody minute, it will go up, the round will start cooking off. This man was badly hurt, Arun, my batchmate, and he was bleeding. The blood was pouring, there was one, he'd been hit in the knee, and there was one splinter which had touched, hit his forehead, and the blood was going down into his eyes. So this man cleared the blood from his eyes, he couldn't see properly, and he said, my gun is still firing. The last transmission that this man made is, my gun is still firing, I'll get these bastards. He continued to fire, he shot up another tank, the fourth enemy tank. And then he shot up the fifth enemy tank. And by that time, there was just one tank left on the enemy side and one tank on the Indian side. And Khwaja Nasir, who later became a brigadier in the Pakistani army, was the squadron commander of the other side, 13th Lancers, right? The tanks came face to face. They both opened fire. But because Arun was having so much blood pouring into his eyes, he missed. And the other round exploded and killed Arun on the spot, more or less. So at that time, all Pakistani tanks were burning. Dhu-dhu karke jal rahe the. And that is the time the driver, he got the tank back, took out the fire extinguisher, put out the fire, and then he pulled out Arun. He was just going a kind of a thing. So he said, he was asking for pani. So the driver thought it was 5 o'clock in the morning in Punjab in the winter in December. It was 16th of December, the day the ceasefire came, right? And he said, sir, मैं आपको थोड़ा चाय लेके आता हूँ. So he got that primer stove and he got the tea. And then when he got it to him, Saab, chai lo. His head just rolled to one side. He was dead. He was 21. Had he lived like me today, he would have been 77. But he will always be 21. I recommend you go and see that film to see how he died. But I'm not here to tell you how he died. I'm here to tell you how he lived and the way we should all live. Be committed to the country that you were born in. Be ready to die if you have to for that country. If you have those set of values, you will never ever go wrong. You will never ever go wrong. Ladies and gentlemen, you will always be upright. You will always be a respected citizen of India, the greatest country in the world. And in conclusion, I will tell you one more story about patriotism, about nationalism, and what exactly it means. Swami Ram Tirth was a great teacher of Vedanta, right? He had gone to Japan to give lectures on Vedanta. So one fine night he came back, like Ambassador Vora and I go traveling around talking to the children, right? So he came back very late. In Japan they are very bloody punctual, you know. So when he came back, the dinner was over. Dinner time over. So they go by the clock. He said dinner. So they said sorry, no dinner. Time dekha. So he didn't get his dinner. He got up very early in the morning. He had to go from the island of Honshu to Hokkaido, and he had to catch the ferry. So he got up very early, 6 in the morning, and he rushed there for the breakfast. You know. So they told him, well, breakfast at 7. Sorry. They are punctual. I mean, and they go by the watch. So poor Swami Ram Tirth, na becharon ko dinner mili, na becharon ko lunch, apna breakfast mila. But he said anyway what to do, so he rushed to the harbour, and there he got in line for the ticket and all that. So when he reached the counter, he said, what ticket you want? 1 yen or 1.5 yen? He said, any difference in the seat? He said, no, no difference, same seat. Then 1 yen dijiye, because we all try and save money when we are abroad, because you never know how much you have and how much you'll need. So he took that 1 yen ticket and he sat, and at the moment he got in, the ferry took off. So it's a long journey. So it was lunchtime, it was 12, and they started serving lunch on the ship. He thanked God because he was really hungry, you see. And they started serving lunch, hot noodles, steam coming out. Can you imagine? Okay. So they served to the last, all the rows behind. Then they came to his row. They served to the chap on his right. They leaned up and they served to the chap on his left. And then they went to the next row. And here was Swamiji waiting. Ki mera lunch kahan gaya? So when that chap finished, he called him, waiter, come here. How about my lunch? He said, what ticket you buy? He said, 1 yen. He said, no lunch with 1 yen. Lunch only with 1 yen 50. 150. Now hunger leads to anger. And I hope I'm not near lunchtime. So, hunger leads to anger. And poor Swami Ram Tirth, he lost his shirt. He lost his shirt. He was a Swami, he's not supposed to get angry, etc., etc. But when you haven't had your dinner, you haven't had your breakfast, and now you missed your lunch, right? He lost his shirt. Then मेरे को सपना आना था कि तुम्हारा वो 1.5 yen के अंदर lunch है. तुमने कोई बोर्ड लिखा? Or how do I know? I'm from India. I'm from a foreign country. How the bloody hell do I know that with this thing? Ye, wo, ye. He was very angry, So he said, anyway, I'll pay you that 50, whatever change is required. But can you get me a tray of lunch, please? I haven't had my dinner. I haven't had my breakfast. He said, sorry, we only took that many as they were the 150 tickets. तो वो गुस्से में आके वो ऐसा करके, when you lock your arms, that I don't want to talk to you. So he sat very angrily, and he felt a tap on his shoulder. So when he looked back, there was a young Japanese boy, 13 perhaps. वो बोलते हैं ना साधना कट, उसके सिल्कन बाल माथे पे आए थे. He was wearing thick, big horn-rimmed spectacles, very studious little boy, He tapped him on the shoulder, So he was surprised. He looked back. Without a word, that little boy took his lunch plate and he gave it to him. Said, eat, kha. He got shocked, you see, but then he felt very embarrassed at his outburst, right? He said, no, I mean, you paid for it, aap khaiye. Thank you very much, very kind of you, and it's okay, it's fine, happens, vagara karke. He sat down again. He felt another tap on his shoulder. He looked back again, it was that young boy. Now it wasn't a soldier like me, 6 foot, and very ready to fight, very ready to, lunge with your fist first, etc., etc. It was a young Japanese boy. But that Japanese boy, वो खड़ा हो गया था उसका मुंह टमाटर जैसे लाल हो गया. He again pushed that bloody tray under the Swami's nose and he said, "Eat!" You understand the difference between eat and eat? चुपचाप से स्वामी जी ने ट्रे ले लिया और खाना भी शुरू कर दिया. बिकॉज इसे पता नहीं कराटे शराटे जानता होगा, 3-4 जड़ दे अभी यहाँ पे नहीं पता. बंदे का लाल हो गया उसका मुंह. He said, "But मैं खा रहा हूँ भाई, don't lose your shirt, but why are you giving me your plate?" He said, "Mister, listen to this." He said, "Mister, twice in the last 2 minutes, you said, what a funny country is Japan." क्या वाहियात मुल्क है जापान? क्यों बे? क्योंकि तेरे को खाना नहीं मिला? तू मेरा खाना खा ले. खबरदार तेरे मुंह से मेरे देश के खिलाफ एक अल्फाज भी निकला, अबे जवान खींच के यहां पे फेंक दूंगा. Ladies and gentlemen, I rest my case. That is patriotism. That is nationalism. Jai Bharat, Jai Hind.